Hi, class. All right, here we are back. All right. So, what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to, so that it helps you out, I would like, first thing is, since we are all here, and I just don't want to push this till the end of the class because it's important for us to do that. Take about a few minutes, maybe 3 to 4 minutes, and on chat, all of you tell me the topic out of just give me the 3 topics that you're interested in. You've already given me 10 topics. Give me topic 1, topic 2, topic 3. All right, each of you on chat point out the three topics that you're interested in clearly. It has to be like a claim. All right, so it just it has to be pointed, it has to be um, argumentative, debatable, as you just did. Just tell me the 3 topics that you're interested in. Once you all put it in the chat, then I will take it, I will copy it and put it in my documents, and I'll see what you've done, and I will, out of those 3 topics, I'll give you one topic that you have to prepare for. That I will be putting it on board on Blackboard on the 13th of May by 9 a.m. Take your time, put it there. It's around 10:27. Take about 3 minutes. It should not come in like one, and it's just do 1, 2, 3, and then Did everybody put it out? Do you? Okay. So I got it. Okay, and I have to now save this document. Okay. All right, good. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Got it from Kendo, got it from Muhammad, Miguel, Fernanda, Katrina, Noah. Okay, Noah. Okay. Second here. All right, I'm just going to put this in a document so that I don't. I'm gonna save it right now. I got it from all of you. So, this is my document from all of you. So I got it from, I got the 3 choices from Henry. Then I got it from Henry. I got it from Fabian, Linda, Noah, Katrina, Fernanda. Okay. Then Miguel, Kendo, Muhammad, and Samantha. All right. All of you have given me the 3 topics that you're interested in. All right. Fine. Okay. And I will not close this page. Okay. Now going back. Wonderful. So I already have it from you. I will now close this chat. Okay. So again, all of you, those who have turned it in today, you gave me the 3 topics of 3 choices that you have on the 13th of May, which is coming Thursday by around 9 a.m. I will be publishing it on Blackboard with your name. So it's like let's say Linda will be doing this topic. I'll pick out of those 3, I'll pick one topic and put it on board there. So everybody will be able to see their names and the topic they have been assigned. Again, I repeat, this should be there, not today, not so much in advance. As I mentioned to you, the philosophy behind this is that debaters usually get 15 minutes. You guys are getting more than 24 hours. So this should be there on the 13th of May, Thursday. Just open your Blackboard and you'll be also be getting an email saying that your topics have been published. Okay. And so all of you, because remember, you have your role will be twofold. Not only will you be presenting arguments, but you will also be debating with your classmates. So make sure that all the topics that have been assigned, you have an idea about the topic. If you have to ask questions about the topic, you should be able to know about each and every topic. So that's also that's also your work. Okay. So yeah, so that's it. So I will now turn this out and okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is quickly following up on, it's about 10, we're about, what time is it right now? It's 10:35. We have a good 1 hour, which is wonderful. Good 1 hour and 15 minutes for the class. Okay, so I will be covering a lot right now. So first thing is, let's recap. Let's revisit Toulmin's model of argumentation. Let's see where it is on your Blackboard. Everybody should have everything um, when you start preparing. So I'm going to your Blackboard right now and I'm showing you where it is. All right, here we go. Announcements, stop share or share, new share. Yeah, there you go. All right. This is your class. And once you go to PowerPoint for instructor, you click this. You see that there are 2 new slides that I have posted that was not there before. One is argumentation and debate, and the second one is refutation. We will be covering both of this today in our class, okay? So let's go to the first one. All right. And right now we will also recap what we have done in our last class. So that will help you remember and also understand that this is how you got to do it. Okay. So let me just, okay, here we go. So argumentation and debate. This is the person who we talked about. Remember, I talked to you about him. His name is, he's a British philosopher. His name is Stephen Toulmin. What he did is he would go to, as I mentioned to you, he would go to courtrooms and he would watch how lawyers debate in courtrooms. And then he just found, he was very impressed with all of it. And he wanted, for all of us who are not lawyers, who are just, regular people pursuing different other professions, but not law. But he wanted to kind of give this tool to us so that we could argue with our boss, we could argue with a coworker, we could argue with a friend effectively. All right, so that's what he gave. Again, as I mentioned to you in the past, there are several models. You'll see that if you just took a class on argumentation and debate, you'll see that several theories of how to argue. There's so many things that's just there for you. But I just chose this one because by and large, me and other faculty, I think more or less we kind of agree on this one, is that Stephen Toulmin's model of argumentation is a very basic and a very helpful way of understanding how arguments are done and understanding the why behind an argument. All right. Some of you, I don't think any of you mentioned this, but some of you may have done Stephen Toulmin's model of argumentation when you are doing in your English 101 class, when you're writing an essay, an argumentative essay. Maybe your teacher has already talked to you about his theory. So not only do you use his theory for oral debate argumentation, but also in terms of writing an argumentation speech or argumentative essay, you can still use his theory. So I think it's one of the most helpful theories that most speech and debate teachers or English teachers have used to teach how argumentation is done. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. I think you will all have all of this on Blackboard for you, so which is a good thing, because now you just need to remember all of this. If you've forgotten some of this, you can just go back and you look at this model and then create your argument. Okay, so as we talked about, just to just a quick recap, is the data. The data is the whole proof, remember we talked about that documentary. If you think about that documentary, it was the whole documentary that you watch on what the hell, that's your data. That's what you have to go on with. Okay, so that's the evidence of the proof. The claim is perhaps once you watch the whole documentary, once you watch the whole speech, then, like, remember when we heard Obama's speech, I asked you what was the claim, and you guys, based on what you all heard, you told me that this is the claim that he's making. Okay, so it's a conclusion. After you hear the whole data, it's a conclusion that you think that speaker is coming to. So in a debate, as I mentioned to you, that appears right at the beginning. Okay, you begin with the claim. Okay. But if you watch something, a documentary, or if your audience, you want to watch, you want to hear the whole speech or the whole section of the of the debate, and then come to a conclusion. So yeah, so that's the conclusion of the argument that the speaker wants the audience to conclude or to believe. All right. So I've already got so many, so many claims from you today. So those are all, argumentative topics that you've given me. The most important one is to find a reason. Okay, the reasoning is, when we remember, we looked at the model of Toulmin's model of argumentation. We looked at data, and then we looked at claim. So if this is data and this is claim, there is a leap that you're making from the data to the claim. You're making a leap from here to here. All right, and how are you making this leap? You're making this leap through the warrant or the reason. Okay, you heard the speech, you saw the documentary, you heard the documentary, and then based on what you watched, you're making a decision. There's a decision making process that's happening in your brain. How from where you jump from the data to the claim, and what's this decision making, what is helping you to make this decision is your reasoning. All right, so that's the most important. What kind of reasoning I used? Now, the reasoning, as I mentioned, is just doesn't survive by itself. Okay, it has to be supported. Okay, it has to be supported by backing. So warrant doesn't stay by itself. It needs support. It needs those strong arms to be supported. Okay, so backing is the support of a warrant. Okay, so it gives you the, if you question your reasoning, that was this the right reason? Yeah, I think this is the right reason because most people think this way. Society makes us think this way. Or you ask questions to yourself. That's how you really think about the kind of reasoning that you use, and you do it through your backing. Okay, modifier was one of the most easy things for us to know. Is it shows the degree. It shows the degree of certainty. How much, how much you believe in your claim. So you have, this is not invisible. You have typical words that kind of you have, which will show this claim of your the strength of your claim. Words like absolutely, most probably, after careful consideration. These are words that you use to show the strength of your claim. And finally, rebuttal is an exception to the claim, as I mentioned to you when I was selling this, or making a claim that this is the best mouse. However, it's not going to work when it's dunked into water, or if you put it, if you you kind of move it over a rough surface. Those are my exceptions to the claim, which doesn't make it all the best. All right. So there are limitations to the claim. So that's pretty much in terms of theory. I just recapped your memory there. I know that some of it might ring a bell. Some of it may not ring a bell because I'm still doing it in terms of theory, and you need some kind of example, right, to kind of place these data claim warrant backing modifier together. Okay, for that we are going to again watch Obama's 2-minute speech, and then I'm going to go to your Blackboard and look at the answers that you've provided, kind of tell you, steer you in the right direction, saying that, yeah, this may have been a better claim, or this may have been a better warrant, or this may have been a better backing. Okay, so we'll do that. Think about this: data claim warrant backing modifier and rebuttal. Now I'm taking you to Obama's speech. So bear with me here. Stop share, and now take you to Obama's speech. Okay, 1 second. YouTube. There you are.
About when we use force.
Okay, I'm right now queued.
I determine. The facts can.
Aware person to be able to fill in the blanks.
When dictators commit atrocities, they depend upon the world to look the other way until those horrifying pictures fade from memory. But these things happened. The facts cannot be denied. The question now is what the United States of America and the international community is prepared to do about it. Because what happened to those people, to those children, is not only a violation of international law, it's also a danger to our security. Let me explain why. If we fail to act, the Assad regime will see no reason to stop using chemical weapons. As the ban against these weapons erodes, other tyrants will have no reason to think twice about acquiring poison gas and using them. Over time, our troops would again face the prospect of chemical warfare on the battlefield. And it could be easier for terrorist organizations to obtain these weapons and to use them to attack civilians. If fighting spills beyond Syria's borders, these weapons could threaten allies like Turkey, Jordan, and Israel. And a failure to stand against the use of chemical weapons would weaken prohibitions against other weapons of mass destruction and embolden Assad's ally, Iran, which must decide whether to ignore international law by building a nuclear weapon or to take a more peaceful path. This is not a world we should accept. This is what's at stake. And that is why, after careful deliberation, I determined that it is in the national security interests of the United States to respond to the Assad regime's use of chemical weapons through a targeted military strike. That's my judgment as Commander-in-Chief. But I'm also the president of the world's oldest constitutional democracy. So even though I possess the authority to order military strikes, I believed it was right, in the absence of a direct or imminent threat to our security, to take this debate to Congress. I believe our democracy is stronger when the president acts with the support of Congress. And I believe that America acts more effectively abroad when we stand together. This is especially true after a decade that put more and more war-making power in the hands of the president and more burdens on the shoulders of our troops, while sidelining the people's representatives from the critical decisions about when we use force.
Okay, so let's see what kind of sense we can make of this clip.
Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call upon you, and now you should be able to, because this is not the first time that we did that, this is the second time, all right? So, and I discussed what data warrant claim. Now, I want to see how much you've understood, okay? So what we'll do is I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to ask you some questions, okay? I'm not even going to do screen share or anything like that. First thing, let me just do this, and I'm going to call upon you. Okay, maybe chat. Not participant, or no, what, how do I do it? Close participant list. Okay, here we go. Yeah, there you go. All right, so I can see my participants here. I'm going to first ask you, unless you guys want to volunteer, my first question to you is simple, easy, based on this 2 minute or maybe 2.5 minute clip that you watched. What was Obama's claim? One sentence, crystal clear, one sentence. What claim was Obama making during this 2.5 minutes?
We should take action against nuclear warfare overseas.
Okay, good. Absolutely right. The fact that he should take action over nuclear warfare, there should be a targeted, I'll also give you that US will go for a targeted missile attack on Syria. That's the claim. That's it. Next, what was the warrant? What was the reasoning that he was using?
I think he was talking about how his decision making on sending the missiles to Syria was much of a better decision with the help of Congress.
Okay, I'm glad that we hear from Miguel. Okay, I want somebody else to also chime in with him. What do you think was the reasoning? What, or let me put it this way. I'm talking about the warrant. Why do you think, in other words, plain and simple English, why do you think Obama decided to go on an US missile strike on Syria? Why? The
Oh.
why?
Fernanda, I'll go. So, because our soldiers were at risk in the U.S. Citizens.
So soldiers were at risk at the US citizens. Okay. So I'll take these two, unless anybody has a compelling another reason you have to chime in. I'm going to take the two responses from Miguel and Fernanda, and I'll tell you what. Okay. So Miguel said that, as far as I understood, Miguel said that he needs Congress to, he needs the support of Congress, right? Miguel, if I understand, did you mention that he needs the support of Congress, and that's why he wants to go for a strike?
He believed that with the help of Congress, that is like the missile strike to Syria would be like a better decision than his decision alone to, send a
Okay. Okay, great. So I'm going to stop. All of you, I'm sure, heard Miguel. Okay, Miguel. Now, my response to you is that is not perhaps the reason of Obama saying that he needs to go for a war, but that would come in as that he needs the support. He needs the support. He cannot go to the war by himself, by being the president and by just acting by his own making his own decisions without getting the support and the yes to go from and the yes from the Congress. So that's not the reason. Okay, that is, he needs that support. That is a part of another aspect that I'm going to talk about. The reason, when Fernanda, you mentioned, the reason is that the two things that Fernanda mentioned. One is US soldiers being hurt, and they will get hurt, and if we do not attack Syria. And I think you also talked about women and children, right, Fernanda?
Right. So like
Yeah.
any citizen, yeah.
Yeah. So women and children. Okay. All right. So these are the two things that he said, right? Warrant means the reasoning, and the overall reasoning, as I understand. And again, this is some of it is the way, the kind of lens or the kind of filters that you've used to understand that. For me, and we're going to watch what this person, I have not watched what this person's who kind of created this clip and what his analysis was. We are all going to watch it together. I have not watched it. I did watch it long time back, but I don't remember any of it. Okay. So this is what I feel, that when Obama is saying that I'm going to go and US is going to go and to do a military strike on Syria, the reason that he's saying is that if we do not strike them, then they are going to become, they're going to get into this chemical warfare. And chemical warfare, according to international law, is illegal. You cannot do. No country is allowed to do chemical warfare. Then I think the overall reasoning is that they are being tyrants. They're going to create this weapon, or they're going to create this war of mass destruction. It is just not going to be their country, but our country. He's saying that our country, as Fernanda, our soldiers are going to be pulled into it. They are going to be affected. Okay. US allies are going to get into war with Syria. And our soldiers are helping our allies, our friends, okay, other countries. And actually, when this happens, our soldiers are going to be affected, okay? So he says, for safety, for the general welfare, for everybody's good, we need to go and stop these people from doing this. For everybody's good, for everybody, for safety, for avoiding chemical warfare, for avoiding the loss of lives of our soldiers, for avoiding women and children dying. For all of these reasons, for humanity's sake, we need to stop it. Next part is when we get into the backing. If this is the reasoning that he gives, how does he support his backing? I'm sorry, how does he support his how does he support his reasoning? What backing does he give? Does Obama give to support his reasoning? Let me help you here a little bit, okay? And I think the way the video talks about it is a little different, but according to what I have learned about backing, is substantial. I think all of you should know. Backing sometimes you can't really physically see it in the speech. It is also based on assumptions, prior knowledge, prior experience, prior, on societal assumptions. When I think about this whole situation, this whole thing that Obama is talking about, the backing I feel that that supports his reasoning are few of these things that have happened in the past. Remember Saddam Hussein, and remember his weapons of mass destruction, how he was taken down, right? So and creating, which of course is debatable, whether he really had weapons of mass. We are not getting into that, but the whole thing about the chemical warfare, whole thing about somebody affecting our soldiers, all of that has a narrative. If you think about this, we are again going back to 9/11. Obama came in at a time when when George Bush he took his reins, right? He came in right after George Bush. So he came in at that time, and when the country was still reeling over 9/11. 9/11 had made a strong impact on us. We didn't want to deal with any other tyrant, any other country going, creating these weapons of mass destruction. Our memory was the Twin Towers being attacked through some crazy, completely, means of which we could not even fathom that somebody could actually take down our twin towers. So all of that kind of those societal assumptions, those memories, those all of that is our backing that supports us. All those little things that you can't really see it in the argument, but those are the things that prompts our reasoning. All right, we do that all the time. The fact that we are reasoning in this way, it is always prompted by something that has happened in the past, something that somebody has done. All of that kind of makes us, think about a reasoning. All right. So here, what do you think was the reasoning? I kind of gave you a few, and I kind of gave you quite a few. But do you see? Do you have any backing for his reasoning? How did he support his reasoning?
Okay, and what we wrote, we had the backing, again, this is what we did last week, but backing that they would use nuclear weapons against unprepared countries to weaken them before attacking allies.
Right, absolutely. That's a great, that's the backing. That's how he was supporting, is that if you don't stop this tyrant, if we don't stop them for protecting humanity, which is the big warrant, which is the reasoning, these were the supporting points, that they are going to create another nuclear warfare. So I think that was there. And again, you think about it in different layers. This is all based out of past events, past things that have happened in the country, and that all of that forms his reasoning. All right. So now moving on from, we got the data, we got the claim, we got the warrant, we got the backing. The most difficult part is over. What do you think was the modifier? Now that was a tricky one, actually. Okay, this one was tricky. I didn't see any specific modifiers here. Did you all have something to mention in terms of modifiers? Did you see any modifier in the argument, kind of that shows the strength of the argument? Okay, so I have to tell you this, that I also had a difficult time finding a modifier, but I remember the second one, just through the speech, I watched it again and again. I think the word that he used after, he says that he makes a decision to go and attack Syria, and he says that after careful consideration. That means that kind of shows the strength and of his argument, saying that it has been carefully considered. So that is somewhat of a modifier. I didn't see any very clear modifiers here, frankly. But if you think about that, I think after careful consideration, which shows that it was well thought of or thought about, people, that he's been weighing the ups and the pros and cons, and after careful consideration, and also the fact that only with approval from the Congress. So that also happens. So there's careful consideration. I think those two words, careful consideration, is a modifier. It's a weak modifier, but I didn't see a whole lot of modifiers here. Okay. And then the rebuttal. I'm interested to know what do you all think was a rebuttal? Exception to the claim. Let's see who wants to go with this one.
We put on there, what past evidence is there that a war would start if we did nothing?
Okay, a war would. Okay, why is that an exception, Linda? Can you explain?
Well, we were just going with him, saying we would be in imminent danger if we didn't do anything. So I was just thinking, well, what's the past evidence that something would happen if we didn't do something?
Okay.
So that's kind of where we
okay, I understand your thought that went into it. Okay, now let me just narrow it down. Okay, the exception to the claim. He said that he is going to go for and there are different ways of thinking about. So if you have your creative ways of thinking about more exceptions to the claim, I think we discussed it. I can't remember right now. We discussed that in class. But I will go with the one that you mentioned, Linda. I'll go with that as well. It's again, depends upon the way you're interpreting it. But a very clear one that emerged for me is when he said that my claim, I will not be able to go, and this goes to Miguel, your point here. I'm coming to your point here, Miguel. He says that I will not be able to go through with what I have planned, the US missile attack, because I don't function by myself. If the Congress says no, then my claim will not be true. Okay, so that's a very clear rebuttal or exception to the claim. If I don't get the backing from the Congress, then I'll not be able to. So that's an exception to the claim. Okay. So we discussed this. Let's see what I want to play the video for you and show you what my response and this person's response may differ. Again, as I mentioned, I watched this a while back. I don't remember it at all. Let's see what this person has to say. Okay, let's see. That will be interesting.
Clip from the speech. President Obama provides at one point earlier on in the clip this claim: Assad's use of chemical weapons, in spite of the international ban on their use, is a threat to U.S. national security. He backs up that claim with the following data. He provides points that if nothing is done, Assad will keep using chemical weapons. And if this is the case, we're going to have other regimes that will seek their own chemical weapons and other forms of weapons of mass destruction, such as the Iranian program to develop nuclear weapons. There's a threat that if this is gone unchecked, then there'll be easier access for terrorists to get their hands on chemical weapons. There's a very great possibility that the fighting is going to go outside of Syria into other areas of the Middle East. And if the WMDs are used there, then U.S. allies in the region are also going to be threatened, not to mention U.S. troops who are supporting those allies. So we've got all of these various pieces of evidence that are being used to support the claim that Assad's use of chemical weapons is a threat to national security. But what we don't have yet in our analysis is, how is it that Assad's use of chemical weapons, other regimes trying to get WMDs, easier access of these weapons to terrorists, and the threat of U.S. allies, such as Jordan. What do these things have to do with national security? What is the link? And Obama provides it both explicitly and implicitly. But ultimately, what he's getting at is that if we have these kinds of threats to U.S. troops in the region, threats to civilians due to the expansion of conflict, as well as the use of terrorist weapons, as well as threats to U.S. allies, all of these things constitute a threat to U.S. national security. He doesn't come right out and say that, but it's heavily implied by the way that he presents the evidence. And so you can see how the warrant, even though it's unstated, it can be used by the audience to semi-consciously connect the dots. So if Assad is going to keep using these weapons, that's going to threaten U.S. troops and civilians, and threatening U.S. troops and civilians is a threat to our security. Therefore, Assad's use of these weapons is a threat to national security. If Assad's use of weapons are going to lead to other regimes trying to get their own weapons, this threatens U.S. troops and civilians and allies, and that's a threat to national security. Therefore, Assad's use of these weapons is a threat to national security, and so on. So this is a key way to think about warrants. Sometimes they'll be explicitly provided where you can see how the data is connected to the claim, but if the reasoning isn't necessarily laid out explicitly, what you need to do is ask yourself, given the context of disagreement that we're finding in this argument, how do we find a relevant connection? What is the relevant connection between the data and the claim? How is it that that evidence proves the truth of the claim? And so sometimes it's just as simple as providing that very basic relationship, a definition of national security in this context that makes the connecting of the dots between the data and the claim pretty easy. Now, very briefly, just to reinforce how this process works, we can pick up on Obama's argument from this point and see where he gets to the ultimate point, the ultimate claim that he makes in this clip. So once he establishes this claim's truth, that Assad's use of chemical weapons in spite of the international ban is a threat to U.S. national security, this claim that he's proven now becomes a conclusion that he uses as data for a subsequent claim. So now we have data, evidence. Assad's use of chemical weapons in spite of the international ban is a threat to U.S. national security. What follows after this is some reasoning that he provides both explicitly and then implicitly. He states, this is not a world we should accept. And in this context, the arguer can pretty safely infer that the reason why we don't want to accept a world like this, we don't want our national security threatened. This kind of threat to our existence, this kind of threat to our safety is not something that we should stand idly by and let happen. Therefore, Obama gets to this conclusion in the claim. The U.S. should respond to Assad's chemical weapons use with a targeted military strike. So you can see between these two diagrams that we've just looked at, we've got a very simple argument chain. He establishes a basic claim that Assad's use of these weapons is a threat to national security. He backs that up with evidence, and the reasoning helps him tie those together. And then once he's established that chunk of the argument, he can use that claim as the basis for his larger proposition, that this is why the targeted military strike that I've ordered is justified. Now, this is the core of an argument, the three basic pieces: claim, data, warrant, or claim, evidence, reasoning. But that's not all there is to it, because Toulmin recognized, unlike the broad generalities of symbolic formal logic, when human beings argue, they're arguing potentially about ambiguous things, or arguing about human activities and human fields of endeavor that can often have exceptions or qualifications. We don't necessarily argue all the time in black and white, in absolute truth or absolute falsity. So there's some secondary pieces to the model of argument we need to consider. The first is backing. Toulmin talks about backing essentially as evidence or assumptions that support the validity of the warrant. So we don't want to confuse backing with additional evidence that's used to back up the claim. We want to think specifically about the warrant. So you can think about backing as if the warrant establishes a link between the data and the claim, the backing provides evidence to prove that the warrant is true. The next piece is called a qualifier. Toulmin describes the qualifier of an argument as the degree of force of the claim. In other words, how true it is. Again, we're not arguing in complete black and white, totally true or totally false. In many human arguments, how true we argue a claim is often qualified with some kind of description, somewhere in the continuum between absolutely true and absolutely false. So you want to think about this in terms of words like mostly true, or in all probability, or based on the available evidence we can conclude, or by the preponderance of the evidence, or beyond a reasonable doubt if we're arguing in court, for instance. Qualifiers essentially tell you how true the claim is. The final piece is referred to by Toulmin as the rebuttal, although it's often referred to by Toulmin scholars as the reservation. And the rebuttal is that kind of statement that we often make when we're making an argument where we concede that there are conditions of exception to the claim. Sometimes it's going to be valuable not just from a persuasive standpoint, but indeed from a rational, logical standpoint to recognize up front that there's a possibility that my claim might not be correct. I'm pretty confident that it is correct, but if it is wrong, this would be the reason why. And that kind of move can be important to make because you're telling your audience that I recognize that there are limitations to my argument. If you don't make those kinds of limitations explicit, but the audience is able to figure them out, then their confidence in the soundness of your argument can be compromised. So how do these pieces fold into the larger diagram? Well, here's our basic three, right? Claim, data, and warrant. So backing would go here in the diagram, right underneath the warrant with the arrow pointing towards the warrant. Because, as we said, what the backing essentially does is provide evidence to answer the question, why is the warrant true? Now, again, notice the relationship between backing and warrant. So we don't want to confuse backing with additional evidence that's used to support the claim. You want to think about backing specifically and directly as why is the warrant true? Why is that assumption or premise or logical relationship between the data and the claim? Why does that make sense? How do we know that that's sound or valid? Now, the qualifier would go right up here because the data provides the support that establishes the truth of the claim, but the qualifier is going to come in right before the claim is asserted in a functional sense to let us know how true that claim is. So that's the way to think about a qualifier. The claim isn't just true. How true is it? Is it absolutely true? Is it true in all probability? Is it true by a preponderance of the evidence? Is it possibly true? Something like that. Now, it's important to note that not all arguers are necessarily going to put a qualifier into their argument. Unlike a warrant, which can be unstated, but there's always going to be at least some implicit reasoning in an argument. Things like backing or a qualifier in particular don't need to be put in there. Sometimes an arguer is going to make a case that this claim is true 100%. So if that would be the case and you're trying to diagram an argument to determine what the pieces are, it's okay to just write none. If in your estimation as a critic of the arguer is just not making a qualifier. The same is going to be true of the rebuttal. Now, if a rebuttal is made, it's going to go right in here because the way to think about the rebuttal is essentially this. If the data are true, in other words, if we're convinced that the evidence is true and we can accept it, and if the warrant is sound, in other words, the logic or the rationale or the reasoning of that premise, if we can agree with that, if it makes sense, so the evidence is true and the warrant's true, are there other conditions where, even though those are true, the claim would still be false? This would be those exceptional conditions. And like I said, if there are those exceptional conditions and you recognize them as an arguer, it can be a pretty good idea to just put them out there so that between the combination of the rebuttal and the qualifier, you're letting your arguer know, look, I'm not being irrational or unreasonable about this. I know that there may be some limitations to the truth of this claim, but here's how true I think it is given these limiting conditions. But again, just like the qualifier, it's often the case that arguers are just not going to include a rebuttal or a reservation. They may argue that their claim is true 100%. And so if that's true and you're diagramming this argument, it's totally acceptable to just write none in the rebuttal spot. Then what you do as a critical analyst of an argument is to move from looking at what the pieces are and how they fit together to the process of evaluation. So if you find, for instance, that there's no backing and or no qualifier and or no rebuttal being provided in the argument, then the next question you have to ask yourself is, well, based on what I know about the context of this argument, is that reasonable? If there's no qualifier, and no rebuttal, if it's being argued 100% true, is that really justified? Or should there be a qualifier? Should there be a rebuttal that the arguer should be taking into account, but really isn't? That can be something that's important to point out so that you can recognize the limitations of the argument's logic. Okay, so enough abstract generalities. Let's get back to President Obama's speech and see how he folds these pieces into his particular argument. Okay, so here's the core of our argument that we analyzed last time. We've got our claim: the U.S. should respond to Assad's chemical weapons use with a targeted military strike. The data: Assad's use of chemical weapons, in spite of the international ban, is a threat to U.S. national security. And the warrant that connects both of these together is this is not a world that we should accept. So where do the other pieces fall into place? Well, we've got the backing. In this case, it's implied, but it's not completely absent. Obama does discuss in the data some specific risks of Assad's use of chemical weapons that explain why the threat to U.S. national security exists. He talks about how civilians can be threatened. He talks about how U.S. troops can be threatened. He talks about how U.S. allies can be threatened. So the reason why we should not accept this threat to national security is because it's risking lives, it's risking resources, it's destabilizing the region. This is bad stuff that we don't want. So it's these specifics about the nature of the threats to national security that provides evidence to back up the warrant. This is not a world we should accept. We cannot take this threat to national security because it's going to kill people and it's going to sap crucial U.S. resources. Okay, so that's the backing. Now notice that President Obama does provide a rebuttal, although it's a bit indirect. He doesn't come right out and say there's a condition under which this claim is false. But notice what he does. He establishes that when he wanted to make the decision to engage in the military strike, he didn't just make that decision unilaterally. He went to Congress and sought their support. And he goes on to describe how, even though he's got the power to make the decision, it's important in a constitutional democracy to see that the civilian leadership has been consulted. It increases the legitimacy of the action, and we've seen the negative consequences of when this kind of military force has been used without congressional oversight. So essentially, he says, without coming right out and saying it, the U.S. should respond to Assad's chemical weapons use with a targeted military strike unless there is significant congressional opposition to the military action. This is what he essentially says, right? If Congress was not on board, I would not be doing this. Okay, so does he provide a qualifier? Well, he does. If you remember what he says right before he provides his claim is he provides this verbal qualification. After careful deliberation, I determined that, and then he provided the statement of his action, which is his claim in this case. So this counts as a qualifier because it tells you Obama's sense of how true the claim is. He determined that this claim is true after careful deliberation. That means that he's not just asserting this is true, he's thought hard about it, he's weighed the pros and cons, he's considered competing arguments for and against this, and after all of that work, this is the conclusion that he came to. So it provides you a sense that he sees that this is true because this is an idea that has been robustly discussed and examined and tested before he actually advocates it. Okay, so now we've got all 6 pieces of the argument laid out. We know what the evidence is that leads to the larger claim. We see that there's a good rational link between the data and the claim, and that link between the data and the claim is backed up by specific factual information that leads to an inference that the audience can pretty easily come to grips with. There is an indirect rebuttal, but nonetheless it is there, recognizing that Obama knows that there are limitations to the truth of his judgment, and therefore he provides this qualifier, letting us know how he came to this decision and how true he thinks it is. All right. So what we've got here is a model that.
All right. So you heard. I did not look at what his analysis was. I think there were certain things that did match with mine. And then when he says warrant is U.S. does, I think that his warrant was stronger than mine, of course, because he says that U.S. doesn't want to be threatened, right? U.S. is being threatened, and that is the reason we need to go for a war. And what I mentioned is that it is against humanity. Okay, so which was, I think his warrant was stronger, but I think the rest of the stuff all matched with what I mentioned to you. But yes, so this is how it, the whole thing, and you can go back to what you have said on Blackboard. I'm not doing that right now, but you can go back and see what you have said and what emerged with this person's analysis. Okay, so if I'm also sending you a link of this class. If you want to watch it, you can watch it and again rehash it, watch it, rehash it. I'm sending it to you, all of you here. Everyone in meeting, here is the link for the video. Okay, so you can just cut, copy, paste this, and then watch it later. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I actually wanted you to I think I'll ask you to do that at the, I'm just thinking about it. Let me just think. It's about, we just have about, no, I'll move on to the next section, but maybe I'll put that as a homework for all of you. Okay. All right, so let me stop this one. Okay, so moving on to the next segment, as you see that today the class is really going one after the one another. So moving on to the next one that I wanted to show you, I'm going back to your Blackboard here. As again, we talked about it in our last class. We rehashed it today. All of this class, all the things that, data claim warrant, I just sent you the link. You can again watch it if you want to again understand what all of this is. All of you did an exercise in class last week, and it is also provided in your PowerPoint. Okay, so here there's another example that I've given you, example of the Toulmin model. And then you have the Obama speech is another example. I've given you the link. And then this is something that I wanted to talk to you about is counter arguments. So let me see how I'm doing on time, 11:23 right now. Okay, not bad. 1 second here. How do I take this off? All right. So here we are. So this is what I want you to think about, all right? Before I start talking about this slide, this is counter argument. And remember, not only will you be putting your argument in, you will also have to counter argue, right? When you hear Linda goes with her argument, when you hear Linda's speech, you need to counter argue with her, right? And how do you do that? Because that's also a part of your whole argumentation and debate speech. So I've put in some points here, but I'm going to this one will be more easily this one will be more effective than if I go more into depth with this one. So what I have done is I have shared this with you. I'm sorry. What did I do here? Yeah, okay, so I did share this with you. How do I go back to my class? Okay, there you go, argumentation and thing. Stop share, go to again share screen. Here we go. All right. So if you go, I just discussed this PowerPoint with you. As I told you, we just discussed argumentation and debate, and the last section being refutation. All right. How do you counter argue How do you refute yourself? All of that. Okay, so I'm going to show this to you. The last slide kind of introduces it to it, but this one actually talks about it. So I have put this in, and I'm just trying to open this up. Okay, here we go. So this is counter argument and refutation. Okay, so this is what you have to understand. Pay good attention right now. Counter argument is when somebody hears your argument. Linda gives me her argument on, let's say I'm just making it up for her. Let's say she says that it is women should stay at home to raise children. Okay, if that's what her, and she says, I go with it. They should. It's not that she says that they shouldn't. Okay, her argument is that women should stay at home to raise children. That's her argument. I hear her whole argument. She has her claim. She has her warrant. She has her backing, modifier, rebuttal, all of that. In 2 to 3 minutes, she makes a claim. All right. And then I am an audience here. I hear her, and then I counter argue with her. I present a counter claim or a counter argument which challenges Linda. How do I do that? How do I, as an audience or as a fellow debater, counter argue? We'll talk about it. Okay. So that's when I hear Linda's claim and I counter argue with, and I challenge her claim. That process is called counter argument. Okay. When I have a counter argument, and let's say I'm making it up, and I say that, but Linda, did you have any research that shows that 70% or maybe 80% of people of working women in the United States, there are research and studies that show that they are more effective as a parent, in raising children, because they show commitment to work, commitment to they're more disciplined, they have a sense of accountability. Working women have that, and they are able to pass it on to their children, whereas stay-at-home moms, they don't have that. Let's say I'm saying this. Okay, I said, Linda, have you looked into this research done by let's say University of Illinois? They came up with the study. Have you looked into that research? Okay, I counter argue with her. Okay, and then when Linda hears me out, she hears me. All right, and the whole thing about debate is, unfortunately and sadly, people think about, oh, they're debating, they're attacking each other. No, that's not what debating is all about. Debate is a way to understand each other's position. All right, at the end, maybe you can't, you agree to disagree with each other. You don't come to a consensus or an agreement which is mutually which fits both interests, but you at least understand the position that the other person is coming from. Okay, so that's the winning an argument is not, unfortunately, that's how the whole system, that's how our popular media or whatever we watch on television, on media, that kind of makes it like, oh, did she win the argument? No, that's not. Winning an argument is not the function of a debate. It's able to understand each other's position and able to come to a kind of to come to a middle ground. That is the function of a debate. Okay, so when Linda hears me out, and as I mentioned, I counter argue with Linda, what she does is she thinks about a way to refute. Refutation means defending her position. She needs to figure out a way to defend herself. All right, and I hate to use this word defend as if I'm attacking her. I am not. That's not my intent. But she has to kind of. When I say defend, I should. I'm more. I'm telling you to kind of. She has to strengthen her position, or she has to provide reasons that kind of shows why I feel that there was a lapse in her reasoning. Okay, so she is accountable to me. So she's responding to it. So that when she responds back to me, that's called refutation, when she's refuting. Okay, and how do you do that? There's a strategy for doing that. So these are the two things that we are going to work on right now, is counter argumentation and refutation. Okay, so both of them seems to be similar, but the material or the content of both of this is same, but but two different people in two different roles or with two different claims will be using it. Okay, so that's what you need to remember. Okay, so some of the strategies of counter arguing. Okay, so now we go into that. This whole slide, this whole PowerPoint has been put in your on Blackboard. Okay, so don't worry if you're missing out something. So here you go. Remember, all of you need to do this. Okay, so once you hear, I'm going to use another, let's say, okay, let me just go with Linda's one. Once you hear her claim, you have to, when you are counter arguing, let's say Miguel wants to counter argue with Linda, what Miguel needs to do is first restate her claim. Linda, is this something that you've seen me often doing today also? Is this what you're saying? You have to restate her claim in your own words. Then, first thing, don't tell us why you disagree or you disagree or attack that person's position. First, tell us where you agree with that person. You have to establish a common ground. First, tell us where you agree with that person. And then once you establish the common ground or a place where both of you agree with each other, then go into the third section, which is then tell us where you disagree with her. Okay, so you can tell it, you just think about this: how, what, where, when. You think about that. You can think about how you disagree, or who are the people that she has mentioned that you disagree about, or what is it that you can ask her to redefine the concept of a concept that she was talking about. Maybe you don't agree with the definition of the concept. Where there's so many ways to disagree. Okay, then tell us why you disagree. And then once you're doing that, then you summarize. It helps the person understand. You always has to be helpful. You need to summarize your counterclaim or your counter argumentation so that that person, it's helpful for the person. You're giving it to that person, right? So it's in a packaged form. You're giving it to the person. The person gets it. Linda gets it, and then she starts refuting, or she starts answering your counterclaims. That's what you need to do. Okay. So then comes the process of refutation. Okay. Okay. Talked a lot. All right. Okay. So now here, let me take a breath here. Okay. So when you are when you are either refuting or doing a counter, you're doing a counter claim, there's several, in both ways, in both the situations, you have several strategies of doing that. All right. So a lot of people, this is a pretty basic one, and when you completely directly deny what the person is saying. If, let's say, she says, let's say she says, Linda says there should be no homework. Okay, there should be no homework, and you say, no, there should be homework. It's black and white. Okay, so you kind of do a direct denial, and then you present your counter argument this way. Or you this is another way of doing it. When you challenge the relevance. Okay, so you say that, okay, Linda, that you're saying this, maybe whatever you're saying could have been having no or having having a woman stay at home to raise the children may have been relevant maybe 10-20 years back, but not now. Technology has made it so easy for us to multitask that a woman who's going to work can still look after their children in a nice way, because she has ways to communicate. She can use different kind of devices to see her children, monitor her children. So you can say that. Okay. So when you challenge the relevance, 5 years, 10 years now, your argument, you can tell Linda, was maybe relevant 10 years back. We didn't have so much of technology. It's not relevant now. That's another way when you challenge the relevance in terms of time, in terms of value, in terms of worth. You challenge the relevance of the person of the claim. Okay, that's the second one. this is these by far, these are the two things we have to remember, that when you're counter arguing, when you or refuting, both, when you criticize, when you think that the reasoning that the person is giving you is weak. Okay, let's say if Obama gave me that reason that US is under threat, and so I will go and strike Syria. I may, if I want to counter argue with Obama, I would say that that's why should US be a threat? I think your reasoning is wrong. US is not a threat. It's an internal war that they have. Why should why are you overthinking and telling me that US show that now the allies are going to be involved, and then US then it will affect our US soldiers? Nothing like this has happened. You're just speculating it. When I attack his reasoning, it's just go and then kill his reasoning. All right, then that's a difficult one to do when you attack the person who's arguing his or her reasoning. Okay, this is a pretty common one. I've watched this in debate, when you said, where's your proof? Or when what sources did you use? Then you say, oh, I used Reuters, or I used a census survey. All right, when you ask the person, where are you getting the evidence from? I think the person or the place that you're getting the evidence from is not valid. Okay, so these are some of the ways, class, that you can think about how you can help your opponent, or the person who's debating, help them to or push them to rethink about their position, and to see whether they have made any lapses in the way of your thinking. So basically, think about yourself when you are counter arguing with the debater. Then think about yourself as a person who's helping the debater understand his position even better, or ask him to really check and see how solid his evidence is. Okay, so that's how you should be looking at each other. You should not be looking at each other. I'm saying this to you, I'm sure all of you know, to put anybody, and even in life, when you're arguing and debating with your boss, so it's not about winning an argument. It's not about who's one up. It is about helping each other always to understand each other's position. Okay, I know it's harder to do than say, but I think I have followed this. I and it gives me a lot of peace of mind when I am arguing with my children, or I'm arguing with my co-worker about a certain thing. It just helps me to, or even with my friends, when I'm talking about politics and other issues. I feel that I get a little personal sometimes, and I feel that person is trying to show me how that person is one up. And whenever I get into that, it just completely makes me upset, makes me feel like, walk out of the conversation, and it's a conversation stopper. So you got to think about the other person as helping the person. You think about that, you'll never end up having a fight. You'll never end up feeling bad when you're arguing. Just think about as giving him or her points or things to consider to help that person out. Okay, so 11:35 already. Okay, so this is now what I'm going to, I think I did discuss this with you, but I'm going to discuss this more in details. What I will, I have provided you the details of your argumentation and debate speech, which is next week. So you, as I mentioned to you, on the 13th, you will know, you've given me 3 topics. I will narrow it down to 1 topic. On the 13th on Blackboard, you should be able to see, excuse me. You should be able to see which topic you've been assigned, and then just do that. Okay, and prepare for that one. So how many words should it be? It's about 2 to 3 minutes, so maybe 100 words per minute. So it's like, you've usually done 500 words because it's a 3-minute speech. You have about 300 words. Okay, you need to tool model of argumentation. This is my claim. That's not how, an argument happens. As you watched Obama, he didn't say, this is my claim, this is my warrant, this is my backing. He just had that. He analyzed what he said. That's when we kind of deconstructed it and said, this is this. Then you just say, this is my claim. Write it down according to that. Okay, it will help you out, and then it will help you to understand rebuttal. All of that is obviously when you are doing the speech, when you're delivering the speech, you're not going to tell me this is my claim. Everything will be together. Okay, it should flow very nicely. It should flow very smooth. All right. Standard things 10 feet away from, I will anyways tell you. Note cards, 3 note cards or flashcards, please have those, have these instead of looking at your screen, or some of you did that. And it's not a big deal, but I've seen that sometimes you squint or just have note cards, put it in big print. It's just easier for you. If you want to do it on your cell phone, I just hope you don't lose your track, okay? Or the screen disappears, and because then you get distracted. Strong eye contact, body language, all of that. You know that in your speech, vocal modulation. This is your debate speech, so plenty of energy. Okay, you have plenty of energy, and then that's the argumentation that will happen within 2 to 3 minutes. All right, so 2 to 3 minutes, and then your argumentation. You won't know. I'll just pick one participant in the class and I'll ask them to present his or her counter argument to you. I would like you to take that counter argument, hear it out, restate his or her counter argument, and then refute. You are going to be based your whole way you refute yourself when you hear a counter argument from one of your classmates. Okay, so all total, I don't think you should have more than maybe at the most 5 to 6 minutes. All right, I don't think we'll extend more than that. So that's what's going to be in your next speech, which is on that's the last class on the 15th. Yeah, so at 9 o'clock we'll all meet here. One things, and again, I've shown you everything is here for your time to do that, but I want this to be turned in early because I want you to turn this in. This is not a regular due date that we will have. The reason is because we are preparing towards our final, so we don't want to wait till that point. All right, so this is a homework which needs to be submitted. So for the first time, this will have a different due date. Okay, which I will just put in the homework. What you need to do is the 3 topics that all of you gave me. I want you to write an argument for 3 of those topics, okay, and submit it to me. So if you and you'll be given 1, but you have to write an argument of 200 to 300 words for each of the 3 topics that you've given me, and I'm going to make that. Let's see. I will put it here for you. Wait, 1 second, please. Okay, sorry, got it. All right, so you did the week 14, so week 15 assignment. I thought I'll do it in class, but that's fine. Oh, what happened here? Okay, week 15. Assignment. Sorry, but okay. So for each of the 3 topics, you yourself gave me, excuse me, you yourself, stop share and you share. Okay, all right. You yourself gave me, this is what I've copied from the chat. All of you gave me these 3 topics, right? So based on the 3 topics that you have given me, oh, shoot. Hope I didn't use it. No. Based on the 3 topics that you have given me, you've chosen, you will have to, for each topic, okay? So you have to, like, I'm going to say 1, 2, and 3. 3 topics that I would like to see an argument with all of that for each of the 3 topics. I need to have an argument for each of the 3 topics, which will have Toulmin's model of argumentation, so data, claim, warrant, backing, modifier, and rebuttal. So 200 words each, okay? So this one, I'm just going to make it as easy. 200 words, 200 to 300 words, right? All right, so yeah, so that's what you're going to do. And this assignment, I would like you to turn it in on Wednesday by 11:59 p.m. All right, this we'll have a new due date, which you are not used to, by 11:59 by Wednesday, which is what time? What date is it? 12th. Okay, so by 5:12, 5:12 Wednesday, 11:59 p.m. And I'm assigning 60 points to this one. Okay. $60 points for this one. Yep. So let's submit. So once I've hit submit, if you go to weekly assignment, this is what you're going to do for this week. Remember, next week is when we meet live and you go with your speech, your argumentation speech, and then that's it. That's what we do in our next class. And you need to, for this week's assignment, you will have to, this is the homework that you have, and it needs to be turned in by Wednesday, 11:59 p.m. On Thursday by 9 a.m. I will look at all your work and then select one out of the 3 that you have given me. And it'll be displayed on board. So you have from Thursday, you have Thursday, Friday. Actually, you have more than 48 hours to prepare. I usually give 24 hours, but this time I give you 48 hours. So, and then you come in class, and I'm going to start the session. We are going to do your argument. Remember, on the 13th, when you see all the topics listed on board, please read up each topic that you have that have been assigned, so that you know that not only your points will come out of argument, but your points will also come out of the kind of counter arguments that you're giving your peers. So make sure you have an idea on the topic. The reason I'm saying this is because I'm going to pick one of you for every speech and ask you to counter argue. Okay, and I gave you the link, and all your PowerPoints are here. It's all there. I think That's it. It's about 11:51 and 1 minute past. Quickly wanted to say that all your grades are all updated. So you should be, if you're not seeing anything, please let me know. And if you want to stay back to talk to me, feel free. Other than that, I hope to see you next week. Bye.
Professor, we're going to meet on the same day, right? Okay.
So next Saturday is our last one, right? Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Freshman?
Yeah. Miguel, if you have something to talk to me about, we can let me end the meeting because this meeting is being recorded.
Oh, okay.